How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of the Casual Pros Podcast. We're already laughing. I don't even know why. I'm Jeff Easterling. This is Ricari Austin.
Hello.
And we're here just hanging out and talking about things. Unfortunately, today is a little bit more of a somber tone than we normally are, but I feel like it's something that we can look at in a more positive light. We always try to do that as well as much as possible. If it's not super obvious, and even if you don't follow sports, recently there was a news story that kind of shook the sports world and greater kind of society in general. Kobe Bryant, who's a pretty legendary basketball player. A lot of people consider him one of, if not the best to ever play. Unfortunately, was killed in a tragic helicopter accident along with his daughter and 7 other people. A total of 9 people died in that accident. Man, it was pretty crazy. So I didn't play much basketball. My dad played basketball like up through high school, and I grew up actually watching a lot of basketball in like kind of my earlier days in the NBA, and I was always a Lakers fan because my dad was a big Jerry West fan, so Lakers were his favorite team. And growing up, we didn't have the Orlando Magic for a while, and we were, in Florida. Yeah. So there was really no rooting interest for basketball for me. So I rooted for the Lakers. And that was the time during like Magic Johnson, AC Green, James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Byron Scott. Yeah.
Those were the Showtime Lakers.
Yeah, so they had some really great rivalries with like Birds, Celtics, and Bill Laimbeer and Isaiah Thomas on the Pistons, and and then earlier years with Jordan and Jordan's Bulls and stuff like that. But so I've always kind of just been a Laker fan. So Kobe for me was like when he came to the league, I wasn't following basketball as much. It was always kind of like that. Oh man, I love the way he plays. I love like the dedication, and I like that he's doing well for the team I usually root for. Now, for you, basketball has been a huge part of your life. So I would imagine that Kobe's kind of impact, for lack of a better word, is different from your perspective. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if we go into the history of it, I don't remember when I started playing basketball. I want to say I was 5 or 6 years old at the most.
Yeah.
I think my dad just dropped me off at the Boys and Girls Club and said, go have fun. And I was like, all right, there's a ball, there's a hoop. Let's see what happens if we put it in here. But lifelong Supersonic fan. Mm-hmm. That's just being born and raised in Seattle.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You got to love the home team.
Yep.
And that's all I knew. Again, I don't know when basketball really took over my life. But as far back as I can remember, that's what I was watching. I mean, I think back to my heydays were the early 90s when it was like the NBA on NBC. What was that? Round Ball Rock.
Yeah.
That was the
NBA Jam.
Yeah.
The NBA Jam days.
I remember NBA Jam coming out.
Yeah.
And being like, oh,
He's
shit.
heating up.
Yeah, Kemp and Payton, here we go. As a matter of fact, one of the first video games that I owned, I say that I owned because my brother's 12 years older. He had an NES console, and he had Double Dribble. But that was the household's.
Yeah.
But, he's 12 years older. Once he was out of the house, the first console that was mine was a Sega Genesis. And I got NBA Live 95. Oh, that was back when Live was better than 2K. Yeah. But I remember I got it actually at a basketball event. The Supersonics were at this pool hall called Jillian's, and they were doing like a charity fundraiser bit. At the time, I think my mom was dating Sam Perkins, who she met the first night that the Sonics lost to the Nuggets in Game 5, in which they were up 2-0 in the first round as a 1 seed. First team to ever lose to an 8 seed. And there's Dikembe Mutombo on the floor crying with the ball.
Yep.
That's when they first started dating. Yep. Anyway, I go to this event because she wants to go see him. She has to pay $75 for me to get in. $75 grants me entry to play pool against one of the Sonics. It happened to be Nate McMillan. I beat him. This is Boys and Girls Club. I was good at pool. Anyway, basketball was always around. That was my first game. I knew I loved the Sonics back then. I had a chance because of nice hookups to get into locker rooms. I mean, I used to walk the court after games, sat courtside, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So the Sonics were my team. So I preface all of this and I ramble on to say, I hated Kobe.
Yeah.
I could not stand Kobe. More so because I could not stand the Pacific Division rival LA Lakers, who always seemed to be better. Yeah, like besides, well, Jordan retired for that, those year and a half or whatever it was, 94 and 95. And the Rockets ended up taking the top spot. But Seattle was the number one team in the NBA.
Yeah.
I think we were a 60-win team that year. Didn't make it to the finals. We did make it to the finals in 96, which was Jordan's first full
against
year
the Bulls,
back.
right?
The 72-10 Bulls. Set the best record for an NBA season Bulls. And I wasn't expecting much, and that was the one that Jordan wanted on Father's Day. I was never mad at Chicago, but I think the next 2 years, I think we were knocked out by LA.
Okay.
So Nick Van Exel was one of them. Couldn't stand him. Chewed Gary Payton apart. Shot his free throws weird as hell. I think AC Green was still there. He was a bit older. I just hated the Lakers.
Yeah.
I hated the Lakers, but it was fun to hate because they were a rival.
Yeah, for sure.
And they were good. So Kobe,
the Lakers
to me,
have a similar mystique like a Yankees or a Red Sox or something like that, kind of in the NBA because they've had good teams for a long time.
Well, it wasn't necessarily that. Like, I've never felt any angst for Boston or Chicago.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think because we had to see them 4 times per year, and they were responsible for a couple of early exits for the playoffs.
Yep.
After I was used to something close to greatness. So Kobe was an interesting one to me because I just knew him as a Laker.
Yeah.
I didn't care about him talking mess. I knew he was good, but I was like, shut all that up. It wasn't until later that the conversation shifted into a greatest of all time argument. And growing up with Jordan, I was like,
your career has to go on for a little while even before you start having those conversations anyway.
So to me, he was a Sonic killer. I knew, the Sonics left in 2008. So up until that point, I think I had about 10 years of Kobe. And I just knew whenever he was coming to Seattle, like that we were getting ready to hold an L. Yeah. If it was 2000 to 2004, Shaq is in there, and I'm like, oh, well, here we go.
Yeah.
Well, we're not winning this game. And Seattle didn't win many games for long after that.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a few playoff runs and whatnot.
Because you had that red trim to the uniforms. That's the worst.
Kobe just meant an L. I just knew. All right, he's going to get his 25 to 35 points and give us the business.
When did he come to represent something different then? Was it points in his career, or was it differences in your perspective getting older and then, looking back on it?
Posthumously? I hate to say that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until his death that I realized how much he meant, because I think everything that I noticed was under the guise of normal life.
Yeah.
And at least normal athletic life. Seeing him with his daughter. I didn't think anything of it then because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
I didn't take notice of how well he was doing
and
it.
You also don't put a time clock on it then.
Yeah.
You don't look at it as like, oh, this is the last time. What happened? It's like, oh, yeah, he's retired. Now he gets to spend time with his family.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Lucky him. Yeah. He busted his ass to be able to say, yeah, I'm going to hang with my daughters. I mean, he took an entire team of girls who had never played basketball and said, we want to do this.
Yeah.
And trained them like he would train people in the NBA or WNBA.
Yeah.
Like they had practices that were longer than 1, 2, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And they would do it each and every day throughout the week. But you don't notice and appreciate that, sadly, till later. So when I found myself, I say grief, but grieving is different to everyone. And I was struggling with what did all of this mean. And I realized I had so many memories of him in my mind that I didn't know were there. So it wasn't until later that I realized how much he did.
Yeah.
And that sounds so horrible because the message that everyone says afterwards is you should take this into account and cherish what you have. Yeah. But again, I just saw him being a great dad.
Yes.
Like, do your thing. Cool. Yeah. You got time. Oh, wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Where did you hear about it?
At the Pro Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
In Orlando.
Yeah, that's right, because you were texting me. You're like, this is really weird being in a stadium of people who are also realizing.
So we are walking up.
Because it was right before the game?
Literally right before kickoff. Maybe 15 to 20 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah, it was earlier because I remember hearing reports of like Russell Wilson before the game kind of calling the team around and yeah.
We were walking up to the stadium. So mind you, let me say this. I went to Miami to work doing an event with Xbox and Richard Sherman and Travis Kelce, and my overactive ass decided to fly to Tampa.
Every stadium.
Fly to Tampa to go visit a couple of friends and have breakfast.
Yeah.
Rented a car, drove to Orlando because the Pro Bowl started at 3, and I have a weird fixation with going to NBA stadiums. I found ways to do it. Like, that's what a bucket list goal of mine is, to visit every NBA stadium. And I was like, the Magic are playing the Clippers, which is a good game to see if you want to see the Clippers, not in LA, at 6 p.m. And I was like, I can go see both sporting events and check them off my list. Pro will be damned. I didn't really care about it, but so I bought the tickets. The stadiums are probably
my
half
sister
a mile
was
apart.
at the game at the Pro Bowl.
What?
Yeah,
I knew.
We didn't know until afterwards. we were looking like, wait, oh no.
So I'm walking up, buying my ticket, and this kid, I say kid, he's probably early 20s.
Yeah,
shouts back to a couple of his friends, and I just hear, died helicopter crash. And I was like, what's he talking about? And I was like, I'm gonna be nosy and figure out what they're talking about, because he seemed excited. So I just type in helicopter crash. And mind you, the stadium's probably as far as the camera is away. Like, I'm still buying my ticket, but we're about to get scanned in. And I look, and I'm like, first hit, TMZ.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant dies in helicopter crash. This is before all the news was falsely and properly reported about who was, with him. And I'm like, no fucking way. So I immediately go, and I'm about to hit my text messages. And I watch my phone. I got my group chats on Do Not Disturb because these motherfuckers talk a lot. But I literally watched the little red notification banner, or whatever it's called, the badge, go from 4 to like 12, 18, 24. And then all of a sudden I see my brother. I see other friends. I'm like, oh no. And you open it up, and the first bit was like, no way this is real.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to believe.
Yeah,
like, where were you?
Get it from a TMZ or something like that. Yeah.
You texted me, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
Like, where were you at? How'd you find out?
So I was, we had just gotten back from church, and we were, my wife was upstairs doing something, and I was like, hey, I'm going to run out and grab lunch for us. And so I had gone out, took the dog, went and grabbed lunch, and on the way back, I saw, I think I might have heard it on sports radio, said something about it, and I was like, what? Yeah. And then as soon as I got pulled into the driveway, I'm looking on my phone and seeing it, and of course they're as it's coming in further and further. In those initial moments, unfortunately, the way that news works and the news cycle works, first of all, hearing later on that his family members, or some of them, heard about it from TMZ reports before the police. I mean, that sucks. And I know everybody's got to do their job, and but it's, there's got to be some sort of decorum about that, I feel like. But
you know what's crazy too, and this is just a random aside.
Yeah.
Everybody knew his chopper. It was not strange to look up and see Kobe's helicopter. Yeah. So I kind of get why it happened. I'm not
everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for it.
Oh, no, yeah.
But it's definitely one of those things where I think people knew. There were videos of people recording just because, hey, there goes Kobe's chopper.
Yeah.
Oh my! I could not imagine being Vanessa and finding out from the news.
And so looking and of course reports, and then it was reports of all his kids were with him, all his family was with him, and then it was none of them, and then it was and so it's it's the bad part of how instantaneous news is with the internet now, and then obviously once it kind of got to the point where you at least had confirmed it was him and his daughter Gigi, that's one of the things that got me the most, because I liked Kobe, I liked I liked the Lakers, loved what he did there, loved watching him play, because it was just holy crap, to be lucky enough to live in an era where you watch someone like that play, who is just a step above most everybody else, is awesome. But I became kind of paid attention more when he retired, and that focus turned towards his family and the things that he did to kind of like showcase women's basketball and to talk about, like, you know, you say the girl dad thing. That's maybe the best thing to come from this is that kind of like initial movement of a lot of dads taking pride in being dads of girls, especially in ways that are like maybe historically unconventional. Kobe there was a video clip I saw of him talking about somebody saying like, "Oh man, you need to have a son. You got to have a son."
Yeah.
You know, so that somebody could carry on your legacy. And that his daughter Gigi was like, "Hey, I got this." Like, no, this is here. And I love that because I am the dad of a girl. And you know, and my daughter is in her late teens, or last teens right now, but still looking at that and thinking of the things and experiences that we have shared, especially stuff that was unconventional, you know, like taking her like, oh, I didn't have a son, but you better believe I still took my daughter to racing events and sporting events. I mean, my daughter and I were just at the Alabama-Michigan game,
right?
You know, like, so that never made a difference in, oh, what did we root for and do and things like that. So I really appreciated the role that was played there.
Yeah.
And it overall is tragic. It's interesting. You know, you mentioned in an earlier episode that it's dangerous in different words, but like that it's dangerous to look up to athletes.
Not
But, like,
necessarily dangerous. My bit was just that they are us.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they are us with more money.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Oh, and the ability to run faster and or jump higher.
And Kobe is, I mean, it should be said, and not lightly, that like Kobe was not perfect at all, and had issues, some of them more public than others, that he also had to own up to and show accountability for, and that, you know, he and his family had to deal with in whatever ways they deal with, and I think that's, you know, it's important to kind of, you know, remember like, well, what is, you know, how does that mean for like, you know, me, you know, what kind of examples do you take? You can't put people necessarily on the wrong types of pedestals. Yeah. You know, like you can put them on a pedestal and admire them for like their work ethic and what they did. And again, maybe admire them for how they make a change and turn from a bad situation and go to a good one. Or like I said, I admired specifically for, you know, the way he kind of treated parenthood, especially post-career wise, and that he had moved. I saw a lot of people, you know, in sports coverage talk about his moving into his next career. Yeah. You know, like with the Mamba Academy and passing that legacy on. And I think it's important for people who aren't perfect to be able to pass on to that next generation. It's like, hey, these are the things I've learned, and this is the way to kind of get through those things, because you're all going to have your own struggles and demons and things like that.
And ignoring like any major circumstances that may or may not have transpired. You know what I always thought, and I always think this about all athletes, is they're in a unique circumstance because I think they're bad parents for a very long time because of circumstance.
Yeah. I don't mean be there the same way.
Literally that. You miss your kids. Like, I almost missed Liam's first steps because I was at work at PAX. And literally, I decided to fly home early. And when I got home, I was holding a controller, and he got up and walked towards it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. I could have been at a video game conference instead that you wouldn't have remembered later. Yeah.
And I'm like, that blew my mind. So I think of, you know, we talk about him being an athlete and tenacious and all that. And I know he had to be a bad dad, not a bad person by any means, but I realized that the labels with which I use to judge people have no bearing at all, because who am I to tell somebody else that they are flawed? Mm-hmm. Because I'm flawed. Like, there's stuff that I've messed up on. But you're right. I've loved the last few years because I think it was a total paradigm shift. I mean, the guy that knows nothing but competition. Yep. I was like, what is he going to do? He's going to be bored. No. Yep. He found his outlet to better.
He channeled it, into other people.
Oh, that's we talk about, and I know we've got it written down here, talk about transcending sports and that evolution into that. The way I really realized how I felt when my dad died or was dying, I remember walking through the mall. I was just doing something. Like, it was a 3.5-week process. I didn't know, day by day, you didn't know if he was going or not. Like, he looked good, and then it got really bad. But then he'd come back to and be like, oh, he should be all right. Oh, wait, no, bad. And I remember walking through the mall, and I go, I'm looking at all these people, and nobody has any idea what's going on in my head.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know. You don't know. Somebody's going through whatever. So when I got the news, and I think I let out an audible, like, what the fuck? Somebody walks by and be like, that Kobe stuff, huh? And I look left and right, and I'm looking each way, and I'm like, I see people holding their phones and looking at each other, shaking their head, and the hands clasped the forehead. And I'm like, I know what they're looking at.
Shared grief, yeah.
And then we sit in the middle of the Pro Bowl, which I got to say is not an expensive ticket, but how many people are going to Orlando to watch that game?
Yeah.
Not many. So you can say, if we talk about class, as a very middle-class event. I mean, football is kind of a sport of the middle class, believe it or not. And I'm sitting there watching, and I'm like, all of these people are looking and thinking the same thing. And I was like, this dude was larger than life, larger than my arguments with my basketball buddies about who was better, him, Michael Jordan, or LeBron.
Yeah.
And I was like, this dude touched everyone, but I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, too, and I saw it brought up on one of the shows, myriad of shows that was talking about it, and that there are other instances of kind of transcendent deaths. Michael Jackson was brought up. And I think Prince maybe was brought up. There were a couple of different ones. And they said that the big difference there is that largely those other deaths were in some ways like self-attributed and inflicted, either directly because of or largely connected to struggles that they had, whether it be substance abuse or just, any kind of thing. Whereas this one was out of the blue. Yeah. This one was just pure tragedy, and it was...
I think it was because of the way it happened. Like, the others were very much shocking. They were out of the blue in that, we learned about Michael Jackson taking this stuff to sleep. Okay, cool. And Prince using for whatever reason he was. But this was like a way in which I don't think anybody would want to go. No. And we got to witness the end of his career, along with, you talked about it earlier, the budding rise of a new career that just started.
Not only the budding rise of kind of a new career for him, but one of the things that got me, and it got me more actually than the stuff with Kobe himself, and again being a dad, is the daughter. To watch, the daughter Gigi was a huge UConn Huskies women's basketball program fan, and she had that was her. I'm going to go and play for them, and I'm going to win championships with them and then go into the WNBA. Watching, it's hard to not get emotional actually right now, thinking about watching the Huskies pay tribute. They were paying tribute to Kobe, but I think they were actually paying more tribute to Gigi. And
everybody there should have the tribute paid to them. I know we're talking Kobe.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes. But that is what got me, is to watch stars in the WNBA and these incredible athletes on the women's basketball team for UConn look at something cut short. Man, what kind of legend could she have become? Maybe in some ways bigger than her dad, because you're forging a new path. It's a different pioneering to do it, as a woman in that format. And of course, you bring up how many of those other families, they may not have been legends for the world. They just weren't known for their stuff, but all of them have huge circles of people and families
and
who are
families where a son lost his mom, dad, and sister.
Yes. Yep.
Or like that. What really killed me though is, I guess, the suddenness of it all, is looking at footage and photos of Kobe the other day.
Yeah.
When my dad went and he was the first death in the family, I could watch the deterioration.
Yes. Yeah.
Kobe went looking like he did when he just left the house yesterday.
Yes.
It wasn't I watched him get old.
It wasn't a deathbed thing.
That concept has screwed with me. And I think that's what's made it tough for me to get my head around is, God, last night was the first Laker game back.
Yeah.
They played Portland. And watching that tribute And hearing Usher sing Amazing Grace, Amazing Grace and knowing what it means as far as death and when it comes out, and I was like, oh, I'm toast.
Yep.
I am absolute toast. And then when they played Hallelujah on the, was that a cello?
Yeah.
And they, showed him talking about everything. I was like, oh yeah, I'm wrecked. I could, Emily was sitting right here. Like there was not a dry eye in the house. And then to see LeBron is 6'8", 260 pounds of muscle. To see him broken, to see Quinn Cook losing his mind. Oh my God.
Shaq was one of the ones that got me too, just a bit earlier in the week, watching Shaq talk about, and watching him talk about the impact it had on him as far as lost time with people, or the time we waste on, I'll always have another chance. Yeah. I'll always have and again, I mean, some of my absolute best friends, people like you, people like a friend of mine, Gil, who I grew up with, are people that I can go 3 months, 6 months if we needed to, not talk, call, and instantly pick back up. Those are the people that are closest to. And man, I can't imagine getting a word that something similar had happened to one of you guys and be like, oh, how dumb am I to not have called 6 times in the past 3 weeks or something like that. So I mean,
Claude lives a mile from here, and I only see him at PAX.
Yeah.
And I kick myself because he comes to trivia right here every week.
Oh, that's strange.
He and Becky.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing, go see him. Go see him. Go see him.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, I will.
Yep.
And then next thing I'm like, damn, I ain't seen you in 6 months, Claude.
Yeah. And it's not with any malicious intent, but it is something that puts it in perspective. And I hope that it, that regardless of your feelings on the people involved or the situation, that it does serve for people who may be watching or listening to this, no matter how you were affected by the event. I hope that it at least encourages or inspires people to maybe call somebody that they hadn't, or forget or put aside maybe something that was just a small thing fleeting, that was in the way. That's the tough thing, is just the perspective to, I think, appreciate what you have when you have it.
Because that was the most shocking thing, is that you could be on top of the world and life treats you just like they do a middle class person or a lower class person.
Kobe had everything.
Everything.
Yeah, but everybody on that helicopter had the same fate. It didn't matter, how famous they were, or maybe they were only famous to the people and the friends and family that they knew. It's all the same scenario. But that's my take. I mean, again, it's a somber thing, but that's part of life. We talk about, we do this kind of podcast because it's fun. We like it. It's enjoyable for us, and we just talk about life. And I think it's important that as much fun that we have, that it is something that we recognize that aspect of life. Because if you don't recognize it and you don't put it against the lens of priority and perspective, it's hard to appreciate all of the fun things and the happier moments as well.
It's wild, man. It's been an interesting week, and I don't say interesting in a good way and or a bad way. Just, God, what do you do? And I felt for all the players who had to then go play.
Yeah.
People were arguing they need to cancel the games. I'm like they can't. A multi-billion-dollar industry that has TV contracts, that has people coming. I was like, I flew in for games.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that I shouldn't go, but I'm like, how do you go forward? And the truth is, you just do.
Just do.
But no, I think you hit it on the head, man. Take care of, figure out what's important.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on it. We'll talk on it. I do love that we do this, because then you and I were horrible about seeing each other. You've lived here now for how long?
6 years almost.
And we saw each other maybe
just
more at
months.
work than we did. Either way. All right, you want to send us home?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Kind of a different episode, but you know what? One that we feel is just as important as all the laughs and the giggles and the stories. Hug your loved ones and remember how much they mean to you. Don't let the little things get in the way. And we'll see you next time. Jeff, Ricari, Casual Pros. Take it easy, guys.